Hare Krishna. So, the last week we saw the final segment there where uh, Sumantra is bidding adieu to Rama. I just want to touch on that segment a little and then we can move on. So, um, before Sumantra moves on, there is a message for everybody. There's a message for the mothers, there's a message for uh, Dasharatha, there's the message for um Bharata that the Lord sends through Sumantra. But then the final, this thing, he's bidding adieu to Sumantra. At that time, Sumantra speaks some dialogues there, which we will basically have a look at, which we didn't do sort of justice to the previous time. First thing Sumantra says is, listen, till now we've been discussing as a mantri vis-a-vis whatever, but now I'm speaking to you as a devotee. So he says, Bhaktiman iti tatavat. I'm telling you this as a devotee. He says, how can I return without you, O Rama? The people will cry. How will I console Kausalya? How can I return to Ayodhya? Uh, um, uh, and, you know, these horses will not be happy going back without you. I will help in the forest by taking care of the animals that may come there attacking you. And if you're not going to listen to this, if you don't allow me, then I will enter fire. So please tell me, मैं तरस रहा हूं for me to hear those words of yours, which is going to say, please stay back with me. Will you say that to me? uh, I desire to take you back after the exile. So if I'm going to be away, it's better I be with you and take you back. um, and this is, you're so affectionate to your servants, so please don't forsake me. That's when Rama says, janami paramam bhaktim. Hey Sumantra, I know your the great devotion that you have, and the affection that you have for me. I definitely know that. um, I'll tell you why I'm sending you, because Kaikeyi needs to believe that I have actually gone to the forest, because she knows that you will speak nothing but Satya. And Kaikeyi will feel that Dasharatha is not alive. And for my pleasure and for the king's pleasure, please, Mama Priyartam Ragyascha, for the sake of me and for the sake of the king. That's the request that's made. So that's the end of chapter 52. So we move on to the next chapter there. So in chapter 53, Rama begins. Chapter 53 talks with Rama's worries as they reach the other side. We've seen the rest of the background. So when they reach the other side, basically he's thinking, what's going to happen to the king's plight at this point in time? What is happening with Dasharatha? Uh, hmm, Kamatma Vashamagata. Unfortunately, it looks like my father has been taken by his desires. And then he mentions that which same fellow will ever abandon a good son for the sake of a woman, which is what Dasharatha has done. And Rama makes this mention out of the three, Dharma, Artha, Kama, which we have been having many dialogues before. Out of the three, it looks like Kama is actually winning over Dharma and Artha at this point in time. Passion is stronger. And then he says, and if anybody who succumbs to passion, this is the same fate that they will see as that of Dasharatha. He says, even an illiterate person wouldn't actually
मंगा देती हूँ तुम बोलो
be.
2 मिनट में आ जाएगा
Hare Krishna, can somebody mic off?
जो है मेरे पास वही है मैं एक जगह चेक करती हूँ
Geetima ji, can you mute? Thank you, I've done it for you. Hare Krishna. Um, sorry about that. So he's saying even an illiterate person wouldn't do this. Yes. So he says, I think what is going to happen is Bharata, with his wife alone, is going to enjoy this whole kingdom, and possibly Kaikeyi is come into this family only to destroy Dasharatha and banish me. That's probably the purpose with which she's actually come in here. And the only hope is that she does not torment Sumitra and Kaushalya. And if that happens, that will be great. So then Rama looks at Lakshmana, and this is the last volley that he's playing on Lakshmana at this point in time. He says, listen, we don't know what Kaikeyi will do, we don't know what Bharata will do. We are hoping things for the best. But in case some happens, Mamasma Matkaranat Devi Sumitra Dukkama Vashe. So Avaset, Sumitra is going to possibly be in a very pitiable state because of me, because of this whole mess that's happening. So he says, therefore, in order to protect Sumitra and to protect Kaushalya, oh Lakshmana, I think you should go back. Yes. And then he says, uh, it looks like in my previous birth, my mother has done something to separate a mother from the child, because of which she is going through this. And your presence will help me in a big way. So, um, and then he says it's actually my failure that I couldn't, you know, I've been a son who's caused sorrow to the mother, a useless son who never gave her any respite or any happiness in her life. Uh, it is the fact that my arrows can vanquish everything. But what's the reason for a war like this? This is not, there's no reason enough to fight a war at this point in time. So looking at all this situation, I feel, oh Lakshmana, you should go back there and take this. Um, then Lakshmana comes back and says, Lakshmana says, actually, you should not lament like this, because if you lament like this, Sita and myself will also be affected by this. So please, it disheartens us completely. Then he says, you understand very well that Sita's, just as Sita has explained to you, that we are like fish out of water without you. There is no scope of our living without you. So just as Sita cannot live without you, I can't live without you. Therefore, please don't talk about this at all. And he says, please listen, I have no special intent to go and see my mother Sumitra. I have no special affection for Shatrughna, my brother, or anybody. My only goal and affection is you. We will also hear that point later, because right now the message that Lakshmana gave to Sumanthara didn't come to our hearing. We will get to hear that immediately after. So when we hear that, at that time we will know better what happened there. So we finished chapter 53. We move on to chapter 54. So basically, Sitaram Lakshman are departing for Dandaka. That's what we are going to be seeing in this chapter. So as Rama and Lakshmana are walking um, towards away from the river, walking towards this thing, they see huge smoke rising there. Now, what is this smoke? Must be a smoker's paradise, Sisha joint. Hare Krishna. No, this is Prayaga, where rishis and munis are performing big sacrifices. So, um, Shruyate Shabda Ganga Yamanayor. And he says, apart from this, apart from seeing the smoke, aren't you able to hear that sound? Thundering sound of two rivers coming together. So at the point of the Sangama, it's thundering. You can hear, you can imagine what it would have been in those days. Today, I believe it's quite a sound even now to actually see that coming together. But you can imagine in those days where the water resource were so much more, multi multiple times of where it is today. In that, at that pace, what it would have been. So they're able to hear that sound. So then they see at a distance, they see Bharadvaja's ashrama, and then uh, as they are walking towards Bharadvaja's ashrama, looking at them, the deer and the birds are frightened, and they wait outside Bharadvaja ashrama. Look at the etiquette that's being followed. Waiting outside Bharadvaja's ashrama, looking for Mune Darshana Kankshinau Durat Eva Avatastatu. Avatastatuhu, they became situated at a distance. So Bharadwaja is sitting there in the middle of his disciples. So one of them noticed, come, inquire, go back to Bharadwaja, take permission, request them to come in. And then they enter, they pay respects to Bharadwaja Muni. And then he introduces Sita and Lakshmana with very wonderful, appreciative words. Um, and then he says, I've been sent on an exile by my father, but Sita and Lakshmana have been kind enough to follow me in this thing. I am planning to live as Roman in Rome. So this is one verse where we had discussed this earlier about meat eating, and some mentions in Ramayana. So this particular verse is a nice substantiation for us, because he is telling Bharadwaja, "Hmm, dharmameva charishyamaha tatra moola falashanaha dharmaveva charishyamaha." I'm only going to follow that dharma. What is that dharma? Tatra moola falashanaha. And why is that? Because he says tapovanam. Because I'm in a tapovanam, I want to follow the etiquette therein. So immediately Bharadwaja becomes a wonderful host. There's water given for argya padya, and then uh, fruit forests and roots are being offered to him. Then Sita Ram Lakshman are seated in front of Bharadwaj Muni. So Bharadwaj Muni is saying, I heard the news, but it's been a very long time that somebody from Ikshwaku Vamsha has actually stepped into this place. My good fortune to have you here. And then Rama basically, after that, Bharadwaja says, why don't you? This is a pleasant place. You can stay here comfortably at a very auspicious place. So Rama has to very, in a very subtle, beautiful manner, is having to say no. So he says, first thing is this too close to home? People will get to hear. There are more people that will come along. So that's one problem. Second is, look at the sensitivity of Rama. He says Sita is deserving of a very nice place. So he says, ashramam sthanamoktamam ramate yatra vaidehi sukhahi sukarha, because she is sukarha. She has arhati. She has a right to sukha, because she is born in a very big family. She comes from a big background. uh, Ashramastanam uttamam. We want a place which is uttamam, and which is also ekanta. Ekante Pashya Bhagavan. Hey Bhagavan, please tell us which will that be that place. Suggest to us, so that we will be able to understand that. So with that in mind, Bharadwaja suggests, and he talks about this place called Chitrakuta, which some of our yatris are going to be visiting very soon. So Chitrakuta Mahima is being spoken about, and first he says Chitrakuta is such a wonderful place. It's worshipped by many Maharishis. It's a very, very auspicious place, and seeing its peaks, just seeing its peaks, uh, one's thoughts will never go towards sin. It's such an auspicious place. And he says ascetics have been doing tapasya there for so many hundreds of years. Many of them, their body is so emaciated, when you look at them from a distance, you don't see the body. It looks like you only see a big head, just see the skull. You literally don't see their bodies. That's how they are. And the place is rift with honey and fruits and trees and cuckoos that are cooing all the way. Mind you, elephants, deer, and there are rivers, there's waterfalls. It's such a beautiful place to see, monkeys and various others. So he says, I think you'll be very, very happy getting to this place. So uh, he said, but still, he says, still in the last, Vasarama Maya Saha, one more request. This elderly rishi, he's already told Rama, why don't you stay here? Rama has given him all the reasons, but still, when he ends that conversation, for all the tapasya he has done, if only Rama is going to stay with him, what glory to Bharadwaja Muni. So he's requesting, Vasarama Maya Saha, hey Rama, why don't you stay with me despite all this? Then Rama, is just sticking on to what he has to say. And in the night, Bharadwaja speaks great stories about this place, about the Ikshwaku Vamsha and their involvement with Bharadwaja Muni and all of those stories. And as the morning comes, Rama seeks the permission of Bharadwaja for him to move on. Hey, any comments till now? Have I missed out anything? Anybody having any comments to add on? Any questions? Hare Krishna. Okay. So then Bharadwaja is bidding adieu to them. As they are bidding adieu, Bharadwaja tells them, please follow uh, the route of Yamuna. So Yamuna coming from its origin, and it's heading westward, from the confluence, and then after a little further journey, you will see it will start flowing swiftly. And at that time, you will see an ancient spot there where you will get an opportunity to cross over by a raft. So, you know, ask Sita. There is a huge banyan tree, a very special tree there. Please ask her to go and offer obeisances to that tree, and then you can move on. And then you will see to your right, you will see a palasha, badari, and venu trees, a forest that's made predominantly of that. It will be evident for you. You can go there and pick up. So Sita Ram Lakshman Hanuman offer, not Hanuman, Sita Ram Lakshman offer respects to Bharadvaja, and then they move on. So the trio basically go there and they construct a raft of Shushkair Vamshai Ushiraischa. Ushira is, Ushira is that kaskas, the fragrant this thing that comes, with which you can tatti banate na. So with that, they are tying bamboo together, and Lakshmana and Rama make this raft and see to it that Sita gets on board. And Valmiki is describing how she is comfortably seated. And when she is comfortably seated, both of them get on the opposite side ends of the raft and then move it across. As they are moving in the middle of Yamuna, Sita recites her prayers. They've already crossed Kanda, now they're crossing the Yamuna. So she's reciting her prayers there, uh, and she's praying that may my our efforts be good. May Rama be successful in fulfilling the vows that he has taken. And with that, and she says, when we come back, we will definitely offer special offerings to all of the deities that are around this particular area. Then on reaching the banyan tree, Sita, as instructed by Bharadvaja Muni, goes and offers obeisances to the banyan tree and reverentially worships it. And then there is a conversation between Rama and Lakshmana, which is sort of the same theme that we had discussed before. He says, Lakshmana, you walk ahead. And then uh, Valmiki gives this beautiful example. It's like seeing two male elephants with a female elephant in between them. So there's Lakshmana walking in the front, there's Sita following him, and then Rama in the back. And then what is Rama's instruction? Rama says, listen, I'm taking care of you. What's your business? Your business to whenever she's saying, mm, um, Janaka, yadyat phalam prartayate. Whenever she asks for any fruit, prartayate, tad tat pradada vaidehya. You get all of those and give it to her. That's your primary duty. What are we trying to do? We are trying to see that she's moving into a completely different zone. She's been accustomed to people and all this. So we want to see that she's moved into the forest life in a nice manner. So shrubs, creepers are all in full bloom. Sita is seeing all of that, and then she sees the ecstatic swans and the cranes and the birds. So she's in a very, very happy, elated state of mind. They see to it that she's in that state of mind. So then they move on and they reach what looks like a flat piece of land. So seeing that, Rama says, it looks like we are reaching the place that Bharadwaja Muni has been talking about. So I think we should now decide where we want to make a home. So then they have a look, and then they say, okay, let's pick this up. Why this place? Why not this place? And then Rama says, let's pitch tent here, which they do. So now we move on to chapter 56. So, mm, so what happens in this particular chapter is an interesting this thing. Uh, we've heard many people say Lakshmana never slept. But here, the first verses here start to say that Rama was delighted. He awakened Lakshmana, who was asleep. Lakshmanam Raghunandana. How did he wake him up? Shanaihi Prabodayamasa Shanaihi Saumitre Shunu Vanyanam Valgu Vyaharatam Swanam. He says, hey Saumitre, please Shunu, listen, that all the forest birds have all started singing. So cast off Jahau Nidram Cha Tandrim Cha. Leave, give up sleep, give up drowsiness, and Prasaktam Cha Pati Shramam. Yes. So he's basically awakening Lakshmana with this. And then Tata उत्थायते सर्वे स्पृष्ट्वा नद्या shivam jalam. What did they do? They all got up and sprishtva nadya, by taking bath there, shivam jalam, auspicious water. They take bath and get ready for the day. Now, and then there's a beautiful description there, seeing everything in full bloom, honey bees all over the place, all the trees in full bloom, honey combs rift all over the space. There are flowers on the ground, there are cooing of the birds, there are elephant herds, there are deer that are walking around that space. And as they walk there, you know what? They bump into Valmiki's ashrama. And when they see Valmiki's ashrama, they go in there, offer obeisances to Valmiki, and he honors them, welcomes them, and then Rama introduces them appropriately. They take leave. Then Rama instructs Lakshmana to build a strong cottage, and he says, "Please mind you, we will do everything according to Vastu." Guys, you heard it right. And then he says, uh, these are some difficult things for people to really understand. That for Vastu, for appeasing Vastu, he says you slay an antelope, cook it, and offer it to the this thing, which is what Lakshmana does, and Rama does. Finally, apart from that, Rama offers separately to Vaishwadevas, to the Rudras, to Vishnu. He marks altars and places for the fire, offers flowers, flower garlands, kusha, mantra jala. With all that, he goes into the house and he enters the house and sprinkles the space with all that. And then Rama enters the cottage. And what do they say? How does he feel? He feels happy when he's entering. So it's a nice augury that you feel the aura, as we say today, is beautiful. And then they lived happily between the birds and the animals. So the fact that they had come from what looked like a very sorry banishment, um, moved on to a situation where they finally, after various ordeals, came to a space where they seem to be very happy, and they built a little cottage and they moved in. So this is a new leaf that we're going to turn from here on. So Valmiki now focuses the camera away from Rama, Sita, and Lakshmana onto Sumanthara. The next. Any questions, comments, anybody? Hare Krishna. Okay. So where did we leave? The last person was Guha and Sumantra standing across the other side. So when Sumantra is still observing, with teary eyed Sumantra is still observing what's happening. Now, mind you, Guha and Sumantra are not little boys. Yes, they're very experienced statesmen, both of them. In fact, it was interesting to see Guha being described as an elder, and in one other version it looked like he is accompanied by elders. So it doesn't seem to be Guha is some young person, but he's a reasonably elderly person from that perspective. So what do? These intelligent people, they send the people across the river so that they will be able to observe what's happening with Sitaram Lakshman. So these people follow them through to see them at Bharadvaja's ashrama. Then they see Bharadvaja's, after Bharadvaja ashrama, they are moving towards Chitrakuta. They see them going towards Chitrakuta, and as they enter that, then they come back and report to Guha. When Guha and Sumantra listen to that, so Sumantra says, "Now my job's done. They've reached where they want to reach. It's my job to go back to the king as I've been instructed." So Sumantra immediately goes ahead and yokes the horses. Uh, so it seems Sumantra reached the third day at the point of dusk. It looks like when he goes into the city, it looks like a dead space. So he says, he's afraid. Is everybody in the city? Have they died? I don't see literally nothing happening here. The place is totally silent, depressed, teary eyed Ayodhya. The city itself seems to be that way. Has the city, along with the elephants, horses, and everything, perished? Are the thoughts that he's got. So, but when he enters the main gate, when they hear the hoofs of the horses, Suddenly, people from nowhere start rushing towards Sumantra, asking him, "Where is Rama? Where is Rama?" That's the question. His most difficult question. This is what he feared most, and that's exactly what's happening. So people are lamenting, saying that he was looking after us like a father. He heard of he's always been with us for all of our sufferings and resisting. The women were in anguish. Everybody was silent. Sumantra heard the sobs and the whispers and all of that, and slowly makes his way through the people. He reaches the palace. When he reaches the palace, he goes there and meets Dasharatha. As soon as he sees Dasharatha, basically Dasharatha swoons and falls down there. Then all the women come pick him up. Everybody is crying. The noises of everybody's crying starts there again. So Kaushalya is saying, Dasharatha is starting to inquire. So Kaushalya is saying, "What are you inquiring for? You know, you know what you have instructed your son to go. So what is the inquiry about? Or is it that you are ashamed of what you've done, because of which you're doing all this inquiry?" And as she's saying this, uh, she's saying, you don't have to fear. Kaikeyi, whom you're so afraid of, she's not here. So now you can openly inquire whatever, ask him whatever you need to ask. So saying that, in all this, all that's transpiring, Kaushalya suddenly swoons and falls down there. She so then everybody comes and picks her up, and there's some more wailing and crying that's happening on everybody's side. So we move on to chapter 58. So now Sumantra is conveying the messages that Rama's now that he's come. So when King regains his consciousness, when Kaushalya regains her consciousness, both of them are in a state to actually understand. So then Dasharatha starts the questioning. Look at the kind of details Dasharatha is asking. How can an emperor who takes care of people now live like a refugee under a tree? Yes. And then whenever Rama went, there were chariots and all this that was there. Now he's walking alone in that space. He's lying down on the floor. Uh, Please tell me everything. How did he get off the chariot? How did they enter this thing? Tell me about how they sat, what they ate, what they are doing. Give me all the information that you have. um, uh, and on reaching the forest, what did he say? How did he sleep? This, we also spoke earlier about that Bhagavad Gita verse, which spoke about the Atma, and it's how does Atma sleep? What is state of wakefulness? Travel, sit, stand, all of that stuff is there. Literally, the same kind of questions coming there. So Sumantra at this point, with a choked voice, is speaking. First, he offers salutations, and he says, "This is salutations to you, O Dasharatha, because Rama was missing, paying salutations to you for so many days because you're not with him." And he also communicated his salutations to all the ladies who are here, with no exception, to say that Kaikeyi is also inclusive in the obeisances that he is offering. And then he said to Kaushalya, "Please communicate to her that I am doing well and she need not worry about me. And I want her to continue doing her wonderful spiritual activities, doing the sacrifices, serving Dasharatha, which is very, very important. I also request her to have no ego when it comes to dealing with other queens, and see to it Kaikeyi is not split from. This is the greatness of Rama. He says, see to it that Kaikeyi is you don't, because this is a good opportunity for you, from a political perspective. It's a good opportunity to separate Kaikeyi completely from Dasharatha. He said, but please don't do that. She is somebody who knows the king very well. Therefore, don't separate her. She may be able to give him some solace. So don't separate her from the king." And then he has a message for Bharata. He says, "Bharata, you are the king." So so he's telling Kaushalya, please understand now, Bharata is the king. What should you remember? Raja Dharmam Anusmara. Don't show over familiarity with him. Show the appropriate respect for him. Then there's a message for Bharata. Rama says, my inquiries about your well-being. My request is please deal equally with all mothers. Uh, Mind you, you are definitely you are the glory of our race. You're such a wonderful person. You are the king of this nation. Yes, but you are a prince to the father. Do not restrict him. He may want to do something. Do not restrict him, be obedient to him. This is a very, very important point. A man, when he matures, comes to a state when he has to hand over everything to his sons. At that point, he can be belittled uh, by not being given respect or not being listened to. So that's the kind of state that he is talking about. He is again protecting Dasharatha's pride uh, and the respect that needs to be given. Then finally, Sumanthara is saying, Rama shedding tears. He had one more request. He said, my mother should be treated as your mother. There's no distinction between them. This is my special request to you. Uh, with that, Rama had tears in his eyes. Now, this is the Lakshmana's message, which we didn't hear earlier. But let's listen to what Lakshmana has got to say. First question to Dasharatha. What offense did Rama commit to be banished for? Second is, we are suffering because some other woman had a special desire and you have to fulfill. For that, we need to suffer. This is a completely wicked deed. This is unjust, foolish, inappropriate. This banishment is only going to lead to sorrow and distress for everybody. He says, listen, please tell the king, he is not my father anymore. It's Rama who is my father. It's Rama who is my brother. It's Rama who is my protection. It's Rama who is my friend. And then he says, you have displeased everybody, including your praja, and still you think you have a right to claim that you're the king. He's mocking him, and he's sending this message. So then the question is, what is Sita's message? Sumanthara tells uh, uh, Sumanthara tells uh, everybody there that Sita is completely stupefied. She didn't know what to say. She had a pale face, but still she had a what looked like a semblance of a smile on her face, and she had nothing to say because she wasn't understanding what's happening in this. But then, as she saw me moving away, she suddenly burst into tears, uh, and she cried like a child as I was moving away. And then Rama was so depressed and so this thing. Lakshmana gave him a hand for him to rise. And rising, Rama with his hands, folded hands, offering respects to me with eyes full of tears. This is the farewell that I got from these people. This is Sumanthara's first-hand report of what uh, he got from Rama, Sita, and Lakshmana. Yeah. So I think we are done with today's quota. I am super slow at this point in time. My goal is to see if I can finish all of this, a revision of Ayodhya Kanda by end of this month. Uh, my personal duties and engagement is not giving me more time to complete at a faster pace. Please excuse me for that. But that's the aspiration, that we complete Aranya Kanda and the other books, Ramayana books. Fresh set has been ordered. We're getting a lot of Vidwan Gauranga Prabhu's books that are coming in. So hoping to catch up. Whoever wants the books, please let Vidyagati Prabhu know, or in this group you can inform Jayant or Simran, and they will be able to coordinate that for you. New books are coming. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much for being here. Any comments, questions, anybody before we close? Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. We'll all chant the Jai Gosha together. Please mic on so that we'll be able to do that together. Hare Krishna. Sita Ram Lakshman Hanuman ki Jai.
Jai.
Valmiki Ramayana ki Jai.
Jai.
Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki Jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande. Everybody, Hare Krishna Maha Mantra together, please. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Krishna
Hare
Krishna, Hare Hare,
Rama, Hare Rama,
Hare
Rama
Rama,
Rama,
Hare Rama,
Hare
Rama
Hare.
Rama, Hare Hare.